Alexander Downer, thank you so much for joining me. Now, within the space of a few hours, China kills our barley exports and tells our government that our story about the world backing our call for an independent inquiry is a joke, quote, in quote, joke. Why is it acting so brutally?
Well, they have become brutal around the world, and I think this is a huge mistake on the part of the Chinese, the Chinese government. As I've said for a long time, the rise of China is the world's biggest geopolitical issue, and it has to be managed by the West, the status quo powers, and by China. And China has to show sensitivity and engage constructively. What China is doing is calling countries in the West its enemy. And the trouble is, if you call someone your enemy, you make them your enemy. So from China's point of view, getting offside, not just Australia, but a number of other countries, which it has been getting offside in recent weeks, it'll serve them no good in the end, because they do need to remember that countries like Australia are not alone. They're part of the Western alliance, our alliance with the United States, our relationship with countries like Japan, the UK, and so on. These are very close relationships. So picking on countries in this sort of way is bad diplomacy from China's point of view, and they should reflect on that.
Well, you mentioned it's making too many enemies. Just in the last week and a bit, I've noticed their press briefings have been getting into battles with the United States, India, Japan, Vietnam, the Philippines, New Zealand, Japan, and that's not to mention the one, yes, France, Canada, Sweden as well, Taiwan, obviously. New Zealand even. I mean, New Zealand, the land of hobbits. I mean, how can you pick a fight with them? Is this making a lot of countries very nervous?
I think the trouble is for China, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because what they're concerned about is the Western alliance, NATO, the Australian ANZUS alliance with the US, Japan alliance with the US, and so on. They don't like any of these things. But what they're actually doing is they're driving these countries closer and closer together. For a long time, they had a strategy, I mean, particularly under Hu Jintao and Jiang Zemin, the previous presidents, of sort of dividing Western countries. But now they are antagonizing them. I mean, partly just by being so insufferably rude. I mean, in diplomacy, right? You're supposed to try to be polite to each other. And when you have differences, try to express them in a polite, understated way. Their language is overstated, it's aggressive, it's hostile, and the abuse of governments, it's really not acceptable diplomatic practice. So what they're doing is they're isolating themselves through their bad and excessive behaviour.